So I might just react to why Cartoon Network was the best era in 20. Certainly, there you go again, young man. That's why your teachers used to call you remedial. You are so smart. There you go, certainly. But look, before I even start this video, I could say the 2000s Cartoon Network era was fire. Ed, Ed, and Eddie, Johnny Bravo, Chowder, Flapjack, Dexter's Laboratory, even though that was in the late 90s. But, yeah, I mean, hey, the 2010s did have some hits. Just look at these three. That's the big three right there. Let's get into the video, boy. Let's get into
Cartoon
the video.
Network is home to some of the best cartoons
We
and is
back.
arguably the best cartoon channel, with its only main rival being Nickelodeon. Since the 90s, Cartoon Network has been putting out amazing, high-quality shows with super fun characters and funny episodes.
Yup.
Unlike Nickelodeon, there hasn't been a time where Cartoon
my
Network was
gosh.
just awful. So I'd reckon
Cartoon Network is the only place where it can be funny, isn't it could get serious. Look at Teen Titans. Teen Titans is a great example. Who remembers that one Teen Titans episode where Robin became, what's his name? Deadshot, I think? Deadshot? Or some shit like that. I'm 18. I watched this shit. Yeah, definitely I watched it. But, yeah, just Cartoon Network, man. So beautiful.
it's fair to say that Cartoon Network has had a really great 3 decades. And so that made me
Facts.
wonder, what one is the best? For the video, I will only be
Talk your
looking
shit,
at the
Mom.
90s, 2000s, and 2010s, as the 2020s are not finished yet, and I think it would be unfair to include them. I'll begin by saying the best decade is the 2010s, and I believe this for quite a few reasons. Well, this is the most obvious reason. Of course, this era has the best shows. Let's compare the decades. For these lists, I tried to mostly talk only about the cartoons made by Cartoon Network, not other acquired shows, just simply because of the sheer magnitude of them.
If you didn't know, I'm telling you now. You're welcome. Guess what? Slade. Thank you, Booyakasha. Thank you. Adventure Time. It wasn't made by Cartoon Network. Believe it or not, Adventure Time was supposed to be on Nickelodeon. Or Nicktoons or something. I don't know. But Nickelodeon said that Adventure Time wasn't good, but it's just the way they made it. So it was doggy. And then when Cartoon Network bought Adventure Time, they made Adventure Time what it is now. Believe it or not, though. I wasn't that much of a Adventure Time type of guy. Oh, it's shocking, isn't it? I just dropped you some real knowledge that you didn't even know. I just dropped some real knowledge. You didn't even know, did you? Well, now you know. You're welcome.
I mentioned only a
But what I was saying, I really didn't even like Adventure Time. Adventure Time was low-key, It was cool. If it was on, I would watch it. You know? Or change the network, but it wasn't my speed.
very few really good ones. First, the 90s. They began airing cartoons in 93, so this era has a few years less than the other two, but that doesn't matter because the shows definitely make up for those 3 years. The best shows of this decade were Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Cow and Chicken, Ed, Ed and Eddie, and Courage the Cowardly Dog. All of these shows brought something new and fresh to the
He say
cartoon.
Ed, Ed, and Eddie? Ed, Ed, and Eddie was made in the 90s?
And Courage the Cowardly Dog. All of these shows brought something new
Holy
and fresh to
crap.
the cartoon landscape. My personal favorites were Powerpuff Girls and Courage the Cowardly Dog. The Powerpuff Girls wasn't just the average superhero show, and Courage, a kids' horror show, had that ever been done before? While I don't agree with Cow and Chicken being one of the best, it is definitely revered as such. I personally think the show was more for shock value, and almost felt more like an Adult Swim show. The mediocre shows from this decade were I Am Weasel, Mike, Lou, and Og, and Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I always felt like I Am Weasel was a Cow and Chicken ripoff that wasn't that different. Yes, I know it's made by the same person. Mike, Lou, and Og feels very average. I haven't watched much of it, but the episodes I did, they were just alright. Space Ghost Coast to Coast is definitely an acquired taste. I do not think it's very
Boomerang.
funny. It's very, very dry. Overall, the bad
I
shows,
used to love
if you could
Boomerang.
really even call them that, definitely do not outweigh the good. The 2000s boast even more fantastic
your
shows.
shit,
However, its
2000s.
amount of bad ones are
Let's go.
significantly higher than the 90s. The best shows of this decade are Samurai Jack, Codename Kids Next Door, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Teen Titans, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Camp Laszlo, My Dream Partner's a Monkey, Total Drama Island, Ben 10, and Chowder. As good as the 90s
Wombo combos! just straight W's left and right, man.
Were.
Oh my
I'd say for the most
gosh.
part, these were better. This era is like the 90s Nickelodeon. Samurai Jack was a fantastic cartoon that actually kept an ongoing story, which is pretty uncommon for cartoons, even for today. Codename Kids Next Door was a very enthralling action show. Total Drama Island wasn't for me, but people eat that show up. Basically animated Survivor. Ben 10 was also
what's
one I
good,
did not watch,
Porn
but was
Theist?
a
How you doing,
wonderful
bro?
concept for a show. Chowder had some pretty good characters and funny fourth wall breaks, but the humor sometimes was too silly. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, one of the best cartoons ever, is such an amazing idea and executed so well. This is one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows, as for the same with a lot of people, but this one show doesn't carry this era to the #1 spot. This era has quite a few plain mediocre shows, and a handful of bad shows. Whatever Happened to Robot Jones is one of the mediocre shows. A robot boy lives the regular human teenage life. It's a pretty typical story. Evil
show is
Con
this?
Carne isn't awful, but it's nowhere near as good as its grim counterpart. The Misadventures of Flapjack is a pretty
Fire.
good show and has some really good humor, but the art style and its want to scare its predominantly kid audience takes it down a few points. There's videos on
I must have
YouTube
been a fucked
dedicated
up
to
kid.
how scary that show is. Sheep in the Big City is just okay. I
don't remember
really
that.
don't get the humor. I think it's pretty bland, but I don't mind the art, and I totally get how someone could like it. The bad shows weren't the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely not the best the network had to offer. The Life and Times of Juniper Lee was the most generic fantasy teen story. She fights monsters that are from a secret world that only she can see, and the art style was pretty bad. Another notably bad show was Squirrel Boy. It's again
What the
generic.
fuck are these
A human and
shows?
a non-human best friend traverse the ordinary human world together and get into some quote-unquote wacky adventures. It's not as bad as Sanjay and Craig, but the fact that they are comparable says enough. The Cramp Twins was another
He didn't have to throw Sanjay and Craig in there. He didn't have to do that. Sanjay and Craig was fire. I'm literally watching Sanjay and Craig to go to sleep right now. I'm on episode 8. Sanjay and Craig is good.
show that
You
I
didn't
didn't
have to
like.
do that.
It was
That
boring,
was unnecessary.
annoying, and predictable.
What the
There were also
frick?
quite a few superhero shows. I'm not criticizing any of them, but because of so many, they lacked any real variety. There were Teen Titans, Justice League Unlimited, The Batman, Crypto the Superdog, Batman the Brave and the Bold, and a few others. This era also had Chopsaki Chooks, and that seems pretty self-explanatory. Oh wait, I forgot to mention a show, Johnny Test.
Johnny
you know what? Probably best I don't mention that one. Now the
Johnny
2010s, they had the best shows. Just about
Oh,
everyone I'm going
man.
to talk about are iconic. But this era most certainly had a lot of
I
junk
love
as
Johnny
well.
Test.
Adventure Time, starting the decade off strong. The jokes were funny. The visual gags were funny. The art style is very pleasing to the eye. The characters and locations were pretty out there, but were all so fun and creative. The show began more episodic, keeping a loose story throughout, but as it neared its end, it became more serialized, which is always a plus. Regular Show was very similar to Adventure Time,
love Regular
but
Show.
so different. If Adventure Time is soda, Regular Show is water, but they were equally entertaining. The humor was very dry and sometimes a little too goofy, but was always funny. The
Damn.
stories were so bizarre, but kept you intrigued. The characters were very enjoyable. I personally did not like Muscle Man, but I feel like I'm in the minority by saying that. Just like
Definitely.
Adventure Time, the show was purely episodic, but towards the end became more serialized. It's kind of a crazy jump, from Mordecai and Rigby trying to get out of work every episode, to then by the finale preventing the destruction of the universe. It's honestly a toss-up between which of the shows I like more. The Amazing World of Gumball was another fantastic show. The art style was wonderful. They mixed 2D
Well, I
animation,
don't like
3D
Muscle
animation.
Man. Some people just don't get it for real. Muscle Man was a great character, and it's sad because low key, Muscle Man was a hick. He was a redneck. He drank beer. Well, wasn't beer, it was soda. And you know, he was just fat, nasty, sloppy built. Looked like a sloppy Joe sandwich that the school would serve you. But he was a good guy. He was a great guy. I liked Muscle Man.
Live action, stop motion, and probably something else I can't think of right now. The characters were the best part of the show. They pretty much said no wrong answers and put it all together. A
Amazing
balloon,
World of Gumball
to a
was good,
banana, to an upside down chin. This show was crazy. Despite the wacky characters, the plots weren't all that fantastical and sci-fi. They were actually pretty down-to-earth plots, at least for the most part. And that only added to the hilarity of it all. Steven Universe was another show that is held in high regard. I have no personal connection to this one. I've only seen a few episodes, and they never really interested me. But boy, does this show have a fan base. Quite a
Hey! Stop all that damn ruckus!
passionate
Damn!
one at that. Mad was another fantastic show, like Robot Chicken for kids. Thinking back to it, I honestly had no clue
Oh
what
my
most of the
gosh.
parodies were of, but rewatching some episodes, they are so
Yo, when I think of Mad, I always think of I'm sorry for pausing, man, but you know I'm a yapper. What can I say? I remember I had a dream where when me and my brother shared a room back at this place called Southgate. I remember it was like 1 p.m. I had a dream my dad died, and then when I woke up, all I saw was this intro to Mad, and like I don't know why, but every time I see Mad, I just think about that day. It was very weird. I woke up with like tears in my eyes and shit. Wow.
Much funnier than what I remember. Probably because I actually understood the jokes this time. I highly encourage you go back and watch it, if you haven't since you were a kid. Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu is my absolute favorite from this decade. I love Lego, and this only made me love the show more. Even when you drop the Lego aspect, this show is really well written and serialized for a kid's show. I mean, actually looking back on it, this show had absolutely nothing to do with Lego. Every new season they had a new arc where they faced off against a new band of villains, all contributing to one very large story. I have no clue where that story ended up because it finally concluded a short 2 years ago, and I stopped watching Ninjago a long time before.
Cole turned out gay? The nigga from Ninjago's... How the fuck can a Lego be gay?
For that. So honestly, this could be a pretty hot take if the later seasons are terrible, but seasons 1 through 3 are amazing. Online reviews indicate that it did get
Cole
worse.
Zane. Cole Zane. That's all I remember. I got bad memory. Which one's Cole? I know Zane's the yellow one. No, he's the... Nigga, all of them are yellow. Zane is the white one, right? He was a robot nigga. Cole's the black one. God bless him, man. Shit.
How can it not, being 15
Nothing wrong with
seasons
being gay,
long?
by the way.
Sorry, this was a pretty
Just
biased
saying.
entry. Another super amazing show of the decade is Teen Titans Go. Nah, I'm kidding. We Bare
Fire.
Bears. I didn't grow up with this one, but I've seen quite a bit of it in the last few years. It surprised me how funny it was. The three bears are very likable characters. Their personalities are things you've seen before, but something just makes you keep watching. The show also had a lot of visual jokes, which aren't talked about enough in general. The last really amazing show I'll mention is one not made by Cartoon Network, Star Wars The Clone Wars. I know it wasn't for everybody, and it was of course more geared towards Star Wars fans. Despite the show
was never
following
a
an
Star Wars
overarching
fan.
story, the episodes, at least in my opinion, could be watched without prior knowledge and still be very enjoyable without confusion. It was essentially an extension of the prequel movies, but animated. It gave quite a few background characters from the movies much more screen time, and made them more three-dimensional rather than just being a minor character. And the last thing I'll mention for the
Samurai
amazing
Jack.
category is they finished Samurai Jack after 2 decades, which was pretty awesome for the fans that loved it. The mediocre shows got the job done. They were unique, somewhat funny, but had some major flaw
Grandpa.
like being too boring or too bizarre. Uncle Grandpa
Where the fuck is Clarence? Clarence was a banger. Clarence was a
is
banger.
a pretty
dude.
mediocre show. It's not that funny and fell victim to quite a bit of poop humor. I think this show is overly hated. I don't like it by any means, but it's not as bad as people say. It's a little on the wacky side, and Uncle Grandpa isn't the best lead character. Clarence I could not stand as a kid. Clarence is way too dumb and annoying for a lead. Sumo is too wild and pretty unfunny, and Minecraft Steve is the best of the 3, but still
Oh, there
pretty
you go.
unlikable. Put these
Oh,
3
crap.
not-so-great characters together, and you get a not-so-great show.
What? I'm not even gonna talk, cause Mung, he has some great takes, but Mung is just an idiot, man. Mung is an idiot, and I'm starting not to take Mung serious. I might not even watch any of Mung's videos anymore. Mung, you're tripping. You know that, right? Mung be
We're
saying
often
some
pretty
bull.
generic and shallow. It feels like sacrilege to put this here, but Looney Tunes show needs to go in the mediocre category. It's just Looney Tunes with updated animation. It's nothing special, but it's Looney Tunes. It's of course funny with good characters. It has to fall here though because it's not as good as the good shows, but not nearly as bad as the bad shows. Speaking of which, the bad shows. Well, there are 3 obvious ones that are constantly
Teen
talked
Titans
about.
Go was
Teen
good.
Titans Go. I'll just get this one out of the way. I don't remember it being bad at first, but it got really dumb. It's Breadwinner's dumb. The comedy is, well, not really comedy. A huge complaint is that it's nothing like the original Teen.
Do niggas really want to have this talk? The niggas want to have this talk. Cause I'll say it. Nigga. Look at my face when I say this too. Look at my face. Teen Titans Go is better or up to par with original Teen Titan. Argue with me. I don't care. Teen Titans Go was 13 minutes long. It was funny. It had great music. And if you really watch it, there was part of Teen Titans Go where they were saying some real shit. And they had real storylines. Look at it. I don't care. Argue with me. Who wants to argue with me? Who? Nigga, you want to fight me about it? If you want to fight me about it, come fight me. I don't care. Niggas with neckbeards. Nah, certainly. Nah, you can't say that. Teen Titans was one of the best animated series. Shut your cake ass up. I said it. And I don't care. Teen Titans Go is better than Teen Titans.
Teen Titans. But I guess no one realized that it's clearly not trying to be a true to the comic TV show. It's obviously geared more towards kids, not teens. I understand the complaints. I picked a recent episode to watch just to see how it is currently, and wow. Yeah, it's time for this thing to get canceled. The other two shows that are atrocious are The Problem Solvers and Secret Mountain Fort Awesome. First, I'll start with Problem Solvers. This show literally scared me as a child, purely because of the art style. It looks like it was drawn in MS Paint. I don't know why, but that animation genuinely gave me the heebie-jeebies when I was young. The same thing happened when I saw Aqua Teen Hunger Force or Squidbillies. I never watched those, but they always rub me the wrong way. The characters are bland and uninteresting. They have no personality.
I'm so sorry for pausing again, but if you are a grown-up now and you used to watch cable in the 2010s, I recommend you rewatch King of the Hill. King of the Hill is very good. That's all I'm saying. King of the Hill is a great show.
Like, this show is so bad. I better not see a single person defending this show in the comments. I would take Fanboy and Chum Chum or Breadwinners or literally a single moving line on the screen. This show is slightly better than Problem Solvers, but in the same sense that drinking pee is better than dehydrating. This is a gross out show. The whole point is to be gross. The jokes revolve around being gross. I mean, there is a butt guy. I think that says enough. The animation is once again awful to look at. The characters are unfunny. It's just all around terrible. Like the last decade, this era also had an overabundance of superhero shows. Young Justice, Green Lantern, Beware the Batman, Teen Titans Go, and Justice League Action were most of them. They also had quite a few reboot shows. They had Wabbit, they had a new Tom and Jerry show, 2 new Scooby-Doo shows, and Ben 10 was rebooted 3 times in this era. Not saying reboots are bad, but, I mean, historically they are. The latter half of this decade arguably gets pretty bad, but the shows also lessen in quantity. Mighty Magiswords,
KO, Let's Be
Apple and
Heroes,
Onion, Summer Camp Island, Unikitty,
gosh.
Victor and Valentino, Mao Mao, Heroes of Pure Heart, and Infinity Train are all pretty forgettable. They seemed like they were all trying to replicate prior successes like Adventure Time, Gumball, or Steven Universe. They all feel the same, but recolored. The ones that seemed to be better than the others were OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, and Craig of the Creek. They were refreshing and felt new, especially OKKO. Now the big question, do the good shows outweigh the bad? Absolutely. There are definitely more good shows than mediocre or bad shows. Even as the decade went on, the really good shows hadn't ended yet. So even if you didn't want to watch one of the newer shows, Adventure Time, Regular Show, Gumball, or Steven Universe, we're still airing new episodes. Even for the few shows that...
That's the thing that makes me so sick, is that people don't give new stuff a new chance. If you don't like new and you stay with the old, you're not going to find anything good. Because you're stuck on the old. And that's facts. You got to watch new stuff to like new things. Like what? Why do you think, like, if you see some food... and you're like, nah, that looks disgusting. You try it, and you're like, wow, this is really good. It's because you gave it a chance, and you actually liked it. You got to give these shows a chance. You're watching 3 minutes of a new series, and you're like, nah, turn this dog off. I'm never watching this again. You got to give it a chance, bro. And I bet that, like, a lot of shows that were new, that only got, like, 1 season, I bet that those shows could have got so much better. But people with neckbeards didn't give it a chance, so they never got anywhere. Same with, man.
This decade that were exceptionally horrendous, like Problem Creators or Secret Mountain Fort Stupid, are easily overshadowed by the exceptionally amazing shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show. Cartoon Network had its fair share of competition, Nickelodeon and Disney Channel for the most part. But what does the competition have to do with this era being so good? Well, Perhaps we give this era too much credit for being so good because everything else is just so bad. Nickelodeon in the 2010s had been diagnosed with incurable brain rot with shows like Breadwinners, Sanjay and Craig, and Bunsen is a Beast. I have an entire video on the worst era of Nickelodeon, so you should go.
He mentioned Sanjay and Craig 3 times, by the way. I'm just letting y'all know.
Go check that out after you finish this one. And the other network, Disney Channel, was also not the best, we'll say. Did Cartoon Network get an inflated reputation? Was there really nothing better on, so did we just switch it to Cartoon Network? No, absolutely not. You can compare pretty much any show from this era with any show from the 2010s Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network will always be better. Well, maybe don't compare Problem Solvers, but besides that one. It may sound shocking that this is even a reason, but the other two cartoon channels went for a more live-action approach this decade. Both Nickelodeon and Disney Channel had a roughly 50-50 split of cartoons and live-action. Now look at Cartoon Network. Almost zero live-action shows. They gave live-action a try at the end of the previous decade that continued into the start of the 2010s, with shows like Dude, What Would Happen and Destroy, Build, Destroy. They did not perform well, as if that was a shock, putting live-action shows on a channel called Cartoon Network. Obviously, the higher-ups at Cartoon Network.
What I did hate about Disney in like 2015, 16, 17, when I would go to Disney XD, they would have like Cameron Boyce and like You Walk the Prank, and they would call it like some gaming Disney XD thingy. Why the frick are you doing that, bro? Keep it to cartoons. I'm trying to watch Pickle and Peanut. I'm not trying to watch Cameron Boyce play video games. If I wanted to, I would have been on Twitch TV. No, I'm here to watch cable. So that was a huge miss on Disney XD's part. I hope they're still not doing that. I really do. Because if they are, I know some kids that are at their grandma's house that only got cable, no internet, and have to watch cable. If they turn on Disney XD and have to watch people like do some bullcrap, I feel so sorry for you, bro. Like, I'm praying for you.
Network said no more, and there were no more live-action shows. I have a feeling that some people are going to disagree with me. I'm probably going to get a lot of comments saying the 90s were goated, or something to that effect. Yes, all the decades were good, but this one was especially great. It had back-to-back-to-back-to-back iconic, amazing cartoons with such little junk in between. Yes, the argument can be made that the shows that were bad were really bad, but my rebuttal is that the shows that were good were really good and completely outweigh it. I don't know. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, right, even if it's the wrong one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. In multiple of my previous videos, I have been asking you guys to hit the subscribe button to reach 1,000 subscribers.
Come on.
Now I'm a few thousand past that goal. So I guess naturally the next goal would be 10,000. So please hit that subscribe button so you can keep seeing amazing content like this video. Also, hit the like button and share if you want to. I'm not really going to make you do that, but it does help. Thanks for watching.
That was a great dang, Mung. You did it again, bro. He did it again. Worst part of St. Clarence is a bad show. Yeah, that was a huge miss. A huge miss.